Today I observed Jonathan Starnes teaching word problems and trigonometry in an inclusion classroom. There are some things that I learned from this activity. Cornell note-taking was one of the main things that I learned about. I have heard about it and I haven't really been into it extensively, but its effectiveness was great in this classroom. This is something that I will definitely take from this experience, and I will incorporate it in my classroom and in my teachings. And this is also something that I would suggest that most teachers take into and use to their advantage. It just gets the kids going. It keeps them involved. It keeps their attention span. It keeps them actively involved, and it helps them to complete their assignment that they will have for that day. There's also several things that went well in Mr. Starnes' classroom. His kids responded very well to him. He keeps his class on task by being animated and keeping the class entertained and wanting to learn. If kids want to learn, they're going to respond that much better to you and the things that you bring to the table. The grouping of students was also something that I liked very much. Being a part of the special education department, we see grouping all the time, and a lot of times it is not done right or proper. And the way that he grouped his students with some of the more advanced students were able to help some of his lower students. It was just a chance for both students to learn, because as anyone knows, you can know material, but if you can teach that material, you know that material that much more. And for his students and some of his students to be able to teach his lower students, it was just a great experience and something really good to see, especially in a special education inclusion classroom. Another thing, there were some things that I would change with the classroom today. The middle or the average students, if they weren't the higher up students, or they weren't the special education students that needed the extra help, the students that kind of grazed in the middle, sometimes they were kind of left on their own, while the SPED students received a lot of the attention, and the more advanced students were able to do the assignment on their own, so they didn't need any extra help. If we could see these students also be involved somehow or incorporated into these groups, or find out another group for them to where they can work together and benefit from the whole situation of grouping. Having the inclusion teacher for the SPED students and Mr. Starnes available for everyone else, I think this would be a more beneficial situation if Mr. Starnes was there for the middle of the pack, while the advanced students can kind of handle their own, and the special education students can receive their support from their special education teacher that is in the classroom 3 days a week. Assessing for engagement was a strong point for Mr. Starnes. But a quiz or a ticket out at the end of the class period might ensure what the kids have learned for that day. There was a lot of questions that were asked, a lot of work that was done in front of the class on the smart board that would ensure that they learned it, but not everyone gets called to the board, and not everyone gets called on whenever the questions are asked. So for these kids that are not called on, instead of them just sitting there watching, maybe a ticket out or a quiz would help ensure that they are also getting the information and attaining it in the way that they're supposed to. This way, if some of the kids are not getting it, or if everyone is getting it, it's a time to move on. This will give Mr. Starnes an opportunity to plan for the next class and for him to plan accordingly. As an administrator, this experience right here will help me when it comes to observing teachers for PDOS. As teachers, we all know PDOS is that one big important meeting a year, but as an administrator, or as a teacher that wants to be an administrator, I had no clue of what these administration observations entailed. And this extra experience or extra practice assessing what was done right and what was done wrong in the classroom, these things will help prepare me when it's my time to be an administrator. Things might not be visible the first time around, but with much practice, the process will become that much easier, and the information that is gathered will be that much more valuable and that much more accurate. With this extra practice and these extra run-throughs of these observations and participations, it's going to give me that much more of a head start whenever it comes to me becoming an administrator. And this is something that I definitely think that I need, and the things that I will be able to use when it's my time.